Okay, hi everyone. Before I start, I'm just going to pray. So I just ask that your presence continue to dwell here. We thank you for how it's been so tangible all morning. So I just ask that every word that comes out of my mouth will be from you, and that every word that everyone hears today will be from you as well. So we just ask that you determine this time, you determine what happens. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Hanukkah. If you look below, there's a line that says evening of 2nd December to evening of 10th December. That is not the duration of my sermon. That is the duration of Hanukkah. It starts this evening. So what is Hanukkah? So Hanukkah means dedication in Hebrew, and I will tell you later why it's about dedication, how the whole festival is about dedication. It's an 8-day-long festival, and because they count from evening to evening, it's evening of the day to evening of the 10th, whenever that is. But they decided not based on our calendar. It's decided based on the Hebrew calendar. So every 25th of Kislev, which is the 9th month, that's when Hanukkah begins. So it's the evening of, 24th of Kislev, if you will, where sundown it breaks and becomes Hanukkah. It's also known as the Festival of Lights. The reason for this is that the special Hanukkah menorah, so it's slightly different from the one behind, that one has 7 branches. The Hanukkah menorah has 8 branches with 1 center branch. And the reason for that, you will find out also later. There's a significance to the festival and the very first time that the festival was celebrated. So just remember dedication and light. So why celebrate Hanukkah? So this being Oikos, I think everyone is familiar with the feasts from Leviticus. Yue shakes her head. So there are 7 feasts in Leviticus. Would anyone want to try naming some of them? Passover. Sukkot is also tabernacles. No, Rosh Hashanah is New Year. You guys know some of the one where the Holy Spirit was given. Pentecost. Which is Shavuot. Okay, then there are a few lesser known ones like first fruits, unleavened bread. There's Day of Atonement, which is very important, and also there's trumpets. Okay, so in that list of 7, there is no Hanukkah. So do we celebrate Hanukkah? So if you guys were here in March and you heard Edwin speak, he spoke about Purim. And Purim is essentially what we see in the book of Esther. And some of the things that we discovered that day were that the early church and the mainstream church doesn't celebrate Purim because of certain wrong understandings that they have. So they don't, some of the objections include not really seeing God in the text, but if you really read it the way we're supposed to read, like Hades and Hebraic understanding and all that, it becomes pretty evident that God's hand was there. And also erroneous understandings of Jews and God's view of Israel. So in essence, I think the conclusion had to do with Purim being something that's biblical and something that God has instituted as well. So neither is Purim one of the feasts. But here's another obstacle. Purim has a whole book to itself in Esther. What about Hanukkah? Where is Hanukkah in the Bible? Is it anywhere at all? So the cool thing about Purim is that from it we are able to derive strategies. We see how Esther and Mordecai rose up in a time that was appointed for them. And we see how they stood up against the enemy who was embodied in that case in Haman. So just as how we can derive strategies from Purim, we can also derive strategies from Hanukkah. So I'm about to tell you guys about the story from which we can derive strategies. So let's take a look at whether Hanukkah is in the Bible. So look at Daniel first. I'll just read from Daniel 8. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, Daniel. after the one that appeared to me the first time. I saw in the vision, and it so happened while I was looking, that I was in Shushan, the citadel, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in the vision that I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted my eyes and saw, and there, standing beside the river, was a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the high one came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no animal could withstand them, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So just for context, Daniel was writing this in a time before all this stuff happens. So this hasn't really happened yet. Just so we are looking at the rest of the chapter with these eyes. And we know that later in the chapter, Gabriel speaks to Daniel and tells him that this ram refers to the Medo-Persian Empire. So that's the reason why there are 2 horns. The first horn represents the Medes, the second horn represents the Persians. So the Medes are the ones who rise up first, and then the Persians also rise up and become even greater. So just to situate you guys again, Persian Empire is when Esther and Mordecai happened. Darius is a Mede, the lion's den guy, he's a Mede. So that's where we are in the timeline. So as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west, across from the surface of the whole earth, without touching the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Then he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him, and there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. Therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in place of it 4 notable ones came up towards the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came a little horn which grew exceedingly great toward the south, towards the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. So it's all very confusing, but Gabriel also explained this to Daniel. And now we know that the previous animal, which is the ram, is being confronted by a goat. So in the order of kingdoms that God revealed to Daniel, it was Babylon first, and then Medo-Persia, and then Greece. So now we're looking at Greece coming, attacking and overpowering the Medo-Persian Empire. Yeah, so Greece succeeds. And this, okay, it says, therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken. So this large horn, the conqueror of the Medo-Persian Empire, is Alexander the Great. So he is the large horn. But he doesn't live for very long. So after he dies, his kingdom separates into 4, each ruled by 1 general, hence the 4 notable ones that come up towards the 4 winds of heaven. So out of these 4, there are actually 2 stronger kingdoms, which I will explain a bit more later. And out of one of them comes a little horn. So just remember this little horn. I'll read the next passage first. So this little horn, he even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast out. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifices, and he cast truth down to the ground. He did all this and prospered. So we know that the little horn is pretty evil, right? He essentially comes in and he takes away things that are important to the Jewish people. So we see more of him in Gabriel's further description later in the chapter. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features, who understands sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy fearfully, and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule, and he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, and he shall be broken without human means. So we see some traits about this little horn now. We know that he comes in and does very revolutionary things that are bad. We know that he has fierce features, he understands sinister schemes, he's mighty, he destroys fearfully, he destroys the holy people. He's cunning, and he is somebody who brings deceit. he also exalts himself beyond what he should. So he's very powerful, but he's also very evil. So we see more of him in Daniel 11. Daniel 11 starts with, again, a description of how the Medo-Persian Empire gets taken over by the Greek Empire, and then how it splits from Alexander the Great to his 4 generals. And the rest of the chapter is actually very complicated. But if you go and Google, you actually find that there are a lot of people who write about how history really parallels Daniel 11. So it's a very complicated account of how the king of the north and the king of the south fight, and how each one wins at different points in time. So remember just now I said that there were 4 generals who inherited the Grecian kingdom from Alexander the Great. 2 of them were more powerful than the others. So that's the king of the north and the king of the south. And throughout the entire Daniel 11, we see changes in power both within each of the 2 kingdoms and between the 2. So just for your visualization, because we like to center things around Jerusalem, if Jerusalem is here, king of the north, just see it as being above, and the southern kingdom just see it as being below. Okay, so understand that when they are fighting, they will be fighting across Jerusalem, and whoever it is who is winning will usually have control of Jerusalem. Okay, so let's read a bit from Daniel 11. This is about the same little horn that we saw in Daniel 8. And in his place shall arise a vile person, that's him, to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by entreat. He shall start his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. Before that, so the reason why it says that he seized the kingdom by intrigue is because historically he seems to have killed his brother to get the throne. So that just gives you another flavor of how evil this person is. And he comes up with a plan. Before these verses, he comes up with a plan to kind of broker peace with the king of the south. But it doesn't quite work, and they end up fighting some more. So this is after that peace arrangement didn't work. And he now goes against the king of the south. But it doesn't quite work out. And the reason why it doesn't really work out is because at some point, the south, which is represented by Egypt, as you know, Egypt is below Jerusalem, they managed to get the support of Rome. And in the series of kingdoms that I mentioned just now, it's Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then Rome. So Rome is the next big power that's coming. So it's quite a big deal if Egypt has the backing of Rome. And essentially, the king of the north gets some level of success, but then before he can go even further, he's confronted by a representative of Rome who, this is quite an intriguing story. The story goes that Antiochus Epiphanes is the name of the king of the north at this point. So the story goes that the Roman representative comes to him just as he's about to claim further territory. He says to him, if you come against Egypt any further, you're going to not just be coming against Egypt, you'll be coming against Rome as well. So you might want to reconsider. And then he doesn't stop there. He draws a circle around Antiochus Epiphanes and he tells him, you make a decision as to whether you want to declare war. And if you step out of that circle, I will take it as a declaration of war, and you have the entire Roman army coming against you. So we already know that this king of the north is quite a fiery character. So imagine how upset he must have felt with this the entire force of the Roman army and this Roman guy saying to him, you stay in your circle and don't come against me. So in the end, he did make the decision not to go against Egypt with the backing of Rome. But he was very, very upset. And at this point, he was near the south already, so he wanted to return home. And to return home, he had to pass through Jerusalem to get home. So of course, you find the closest place that you can to vent your anger, right? So let's see what he does. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant. So he shall do damage and return to his own land. At the appointed time he shall return and go to the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved, and return in rage against the holy covenant and do damage. So it's a mention of Cyprus because he had to give up some land in Cyprus. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress, and they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. So as I mentioned just now, this guy's name is Antiochus Epiphanes, and this is his timeline. He comes into power in 175 BC. In 171 BC, he kills the high priest, removes the priest, appoints his own false priest. So he essentially takes away things that are very fundamental to worship in Jerusalem. He loots the second temple in 168 BC, massacres Jews, and outlaws Judaism. And two of the very significant things that he did, which allows him to qualify for abomination of desolation, are that he erects an altar to Zeus in a temple, and he sacrifices a pig on the altar. So according to historical records, he makes this sacrifice on 25th Kislev, which is, if you remember, is the day that the Jews used to decide when Hanukkah starts. That's tonight. Yeah. So 25 Kislev, that's the first day of Hanukkah, counting from the evening. And it's also the first false sacrifice by Antiochus Epiphanes in 168 BC. Which by extension means that the last good sacrifice would have been on 24 Kislev in 168 BC. So 24 Kislev will be another significant date that I will be talking about. So we know that when Antiochus Epiphanes outlawed Judaism, desecrated the temple, and took away all the things important for worship, this is generally a negative thing. But another result of his actions was that it became very obvious who was of God and who was not. So we see in verse 32 of chapter 11, those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. So Antiochus Epiphanes is a man who uses a lot of deceit. He's very powerful and very deceitful. But we see that there are people who are not deceived by him, that they know their God, and because of that they are strong and they're able to do great exploits. So who are these wonderful people? So this guy called Mattathias, he's supposed to be the high priest at that time, but as you remember, Antiochus got rid of the true priesthood and he instituted the high priest. So he and his sons decided to rise up. This is sometime in 168 or 167 BC, which is shortly after all the horrible things happened. And they decide to revolt against Antiochus. But something that we want to bear in mind is that they were in a Grecian society at that time. And what that means is that the Jews were being treated as a lower class. So this is not just race against race, it's like higher race against lower race. But yet there were people who chose to ally themselves with the Greeks. So here's the deal, if you're under Grecian rule, you have to do as the Greeks do, right? So if you want to be successful, you want to make it anywhere in society, you want to be able to be treated like an honorable citizen, you have to adhere to their way of life. And the Greeks are polytheistic people. They're also very disgusting people. This is what I mean. The idea of the Olympics came from Greece. So the Greeks believed that all their numerous gods live on this mountain called Mount Olympus. So Olympus, Olympics. And the competitions were carried out in honor of the head god of their pantheon. So his name is Zeus, which is the same guy who got his statue erected in the temple. And they were very exhibitionist and gross. Besides the Olympics, another thing that came from the Greeks is the gymnasium. So they like to work out, and they didn't just work out, they worked out in the nude. Okay, so bear in mind, this is a whole bunch of men working out in the nude. And if you are a Jewish man, it becomes very obvious that you are a Jewish man because you are circumcised. So these Jews who chose to ally themselves with the Greeks, they went so far as to want to take surgical steps to remove the signs of their circumcision. So this is a huge thing. They're not just deciding to, try to be nice to the Greeks or to cry favor with them and try to get some success. They're not just doing that, they are completely turning their back on things that have been taught to them since young. They're completely turning their back on their traditions. They're ignoring the fact that the ruler of these Greek people actually came and took away all their worship stuff, and they're not fighting for it. So it's bigger than just a normal race-to-race kind of fight. And we call them Hellenized Jews, so that's what they're known as. So the decision that Mattathias and his sons made is actually a very big deal. And the fight isn't a Jew versus Greek fight. The fight is between true God-fearing Jews and everybody else. So everybody else includes not just Greeks, but people who were brought up in the Jewish customs but have chosen to leave their God. And despite all that was at stake, and despite the fact that, as you can imagine, they are a very small bunch of people, Mattathias and his sons decided to rise up and to take God's side of this battle. And they fight for about 3 years. Mattathias dies in the process, so his son Judah Maccabee takes over. So Maccabee is actually not a surname. We call them the Maccabees, but Mattathias' name is not Mattathias Maccabee. He's just Mattathias. Maccabee means hammer. So hammer was a nickname for Judah because it was suiting to his character and to the revolutionary things that he was doing. And there's other Hebraic meaning that I won't explain. But Maccabee is now used as a term to refer to this group of warriors led by Mattathias, Judah, and the rest of their family who did this and who rose up against Antiochus Epiphanes. So they successfully recaptured the temple after 3 years in 165 BC. And the day on which they recaptured the temple is 24 Kislev. So that's 1 day before Hanukkah. Yeah. So they start rededicating the temple on the 25th of Kislev. And that's why Hanukkah has to do with dedication. So here's the background of what they have to deal with. When you've just gotten back a temple that has been defiled, desecrated, and is essentially in shambles, there are a few things you need to do. You need to cleanse the temple. You need to make it ready for worship. And one of the things that is important to the Jewish people, if you've been to synagogues around the world, you know that there's a light that's always on. If the synagogue is functional, there's a light. So what they had to do was they had to procure oil, because they don't use this kind of light. They had to procure oil and pop it into the lamp, and then light it. But the Jewish people came and messed with everything, which means that their supplies of clean oil, of sanctified oil, were gone as well. So they dug around and they managed to find 1 day's worth of supply of sanctified oil. So what to do? Do you light the lamp and then let it go out the next day? Or do you wait until everything is cleansed and then light it? But they decided to just light it. And the miracle of Hanukkah, as is commonly understood now, is that that oil that was supposed to last only 1 day, it lasted 8 days. And so that's why the Jewish people have a special menorah with 8 branches and 1 center branch. So they light one every day, and the whole thing stays lit throughout Hanukkah. So that explains a few things about Hanukkah that I mentioned just now. The idea of dedication, because they had to rededicate the temple. The idea of light, because the light in the temple had to be on. And that's the reason why it's 8 days long is because a rededication of something, an altar, a temple, or anything of the like, it takes 7 days. And the thing is considered new and rededicated on the 8th day. So 8 is a significant number for those of you who are into numerology. 8 represents dedication and new beginnings. It represents salvation. So some of how 8 is used in the Bible includes circumcision on the 8th day, so that's a new beginning. Saving 8 people in the ark, that's salvation. And if you see it as God rededicating the earth, that's also a new beginning, right? Because the earth was defiled and he brought 8 into the ark, and then after that, everything was okay for a while. So there's also another view as to why the festival is 8 days long. So some Jewish scholars take issue with the fact that the story of the oil that I just told you about, it doesn't seem to be found in some earlier records, only in later ones. So they wonder if it really happened. But their alternative view is that the reason why Hanukkah is 8 days long is because just about a month ago would have been Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles. And that's one of the more important or dramatic celebrated feasts by the Jews. So they would have had Sukkot on their mind. They would be thinking about it. They would want to celebrate it. So at the first chance that they're given, they might choose to celebrate it. So some people think that Sukkot being 8 days is also what informed Hanukkah being 8 days as well. Okay, so that's Daniel, and that's the story of the Maccabees winning Antiochus Epiphanes. So now we're going to look at Haggai. If you remember just now, I pointed out not just 25th Kislev, but also 24th Kislev. So Haggai talks about 24th Kislev. But first, chapter 1 of Haggai, Haggai is written in a time where Haggai is written at about the same time as Zechariah and Malachi, which are the last few books in the Old Testament. And they are very concerned with contemporary issues. So at that time, they're looking at things like rebuilding of the Second Temple, restoration to the land. Remember that they were in exile and they're just getting to go back. But both Haggai and Zechariah are written in a way that acknowledges not just the physical restoration and the physical rebuilding at the time. They also deal with prophecies of the eventual final rebuilding and restoration. So just bear this in mind when we look at the next few passages. So chapter 1 of Haggai is where God speaks to Zerubbabel and his people through Haggai on the 24th day of the 6th month. And essentially this is the day when God moves the hearts of the people to continue their rebuilding of the temple because they had stopped for some time. So it's a day of obedience and of being moved to do what God has wanted them to despite various setbacks. That's chapter 1 in a very short summary. Chapter 2, we see another word given to Haggai on the 21st day of the 7th month. So here God speaks about the temple, and I'll just read. Speak now to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and to the remnant of the people, saying, who is left among you who saw this temple in its former glory? And how do you see it now? In comparison with it, is this not in your eyes as nothing? Yet now be strong, Zerubbabel, says the Lord, and be strong, Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and be strong, all you people of the land, says the Lord, and work, for I am with you, says the Lord of hosts. According to the word that I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remains among you, do not fear. So here God is talking about the second temple that is being rebuilt, is in the process of being rebuilt. And he knows that the people are sad because the first temple was very beautiful. The first temple was Solomon's temple. You know Solomon is rich. Of course it was very beautiful. But this second temple is being built under very different conditions. They're just coming out of exile. It's a very small bunch of people. They definitely don't have shiny things and a lot of money. So he is pointing out that yes, this is in their eyes nothing compared to the previous temple. But then he tells them to be strong, and he tells them to work and not fear, because he is with them. And then he goes on in verse 6. For thus says the Lord of hosts, once more it is a little while, I will shake heaven and earth, the sea and dry land, and I will shake all nations, and they shall come to the desire of all nations, and I will fill this temple with glory, says the Lord of hosts. The silver is mine, and the glory is mine, says the Lord of hosts. The glory of this latter temple shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts. And in this place I will give peace, says the Lord of hosts. So here God is talking about two temples again, the former temple and the latter temple. But is this latter temple the second temple that's being rebuilt? God says that this latter temple is going to be more glorious than the former temple. So surely he's not talking about the same temple. He's talking about something in future. Remember just now I said Haggai talks about things happening now and prophecies. So in the earlier verses here, this is the now, this is the prophecy. Okay? So this latter temple that is being spoken about here is the temple that is to come, the one that even we have not seen. And we know that also because this is a time after God shakes the nations, and it is a temple in which God will be with his people and give peace. And we know that the time of the second temple was not a peaceful time. The rebuilding was not peaceful. The actual existing of the temple was when the whole Antiochus and Maccabees thing happened, so it can't have been peaceful. So that's another confirmation that this is speaking prophetically. Haggai is speaking prophetically about something that is to come. Okay, so just now I mentioned that this prophecy was given on the 21st day of the 7th month. And this is actually the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles. And that's significant and very intentional because it bears the idea of God tabernacling with his people, and that means God dwelling with his people. And he chose to give this particular prophecy on that day because the people would not miss the significance. Right? So the Feast of Tabernacles is an 8-day long festival, but you kind of break it up into the first 7 days, and then there's a special significance to the 8th day. So giving it on the 7th day, that will also be, like completion of something. So this is not, to God-fearing Jews who are listening to God, they would know and understand the significance of why God chose to give this prophecy on this day. So in the rest of chapter 2, we see more words coming to Haggai on another day, the 24th day of the 9th month. So if you remember, Kislev is the 9th month, so we're talking about 24 Kislev here. And there are two words that are being given. The first starts in verse 10 of Haggai 2. And it says, on the 24th day of the 9th month, in the second year of Darius, the word of the Lord came by Haggai the prophet, saying, Thus says the Lord of hosts, now ask the priest concerning the law, saying, if one carries holy meat in the fold of his garment, and with the edge he touches bread or steel, wine or oil, or any food, will it become holy? Then the priest answered and said, no. So basically, if you take something clean, use it to touch something that is neutral, it doesn't make the neutral thing clean. Okay? And Haggai said, if one who is unclean because of a dead body touches any of these, will it be unclean? So the priest answered and said, it shall be unclean. So unlike just now, if you take an unclean thing, you touch a neutral thing, it becomes unclean. So cleanness cannot be spread, but uncleanness can. And then Haggai says, so is this people, and so is this nation before me, says the Lord, and so is every work of their hands, and what they offer there is unclean. So you know that the people have not exactly been obedient, they have not been behaving in a manner that is holy, and the Lord is, of course, not going to like that. But then, he says this to them, and now carefully consider from this day forward, from before stone was laid upon stone in the temple of the Lord, since those days, when one came to a heap of 20 ephahs, there were but 10. When one came to the wine vat to draw out 50 baths from the press, there were but 20. I struck you with blight and mildew and hail in all the labors of your hands, yet you did not turn to me, says the Lord. Consider now from this day forward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, from the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid, consider it. Is the seed still in the bud? As yet the vine, the fig tree, the pomegranate, and the olive tree have not yielded fruit. But from this day I will bless you. So verse 15 says, consider from this day forward, before stone was laid upon stone in the temple of the Lord. And then verse 18 says, consider now from this day forward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, from the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Right, so we know that these principles here apply to the 24th day of the 9th month, from the day that the foundation is laid. And the Lord says, this is the promise of 24 Kislev. But from this day I will bless you.
Hallelujah.
So we know that this is not the physical temple that's being built, because Haggai is speaking prophetically here. So from this we can draw out that God is talking about a general principle that will apply to the future.
Yes.
And so these are some things that we now know about 25th and 24th Kislev. So 25th Kislev, just to recap, is the first day of Hanukkah, which means dedication. It's the first false sacrifice by Antiochus Epiphanes in 168 BC, but then it is the first day of the rededication of the temple in 165 BC. So that's a reclaiming of the day, right? And then 24 Kislev, the promise is, from this day I will bless you. It's the last true sacrifice in 168 BC, but then it is also the date of the Maccabean victory, where they recaptured the temple 2 years later in 165 BC. And we now know that it's linked to the final glorious temple, because Haggai was talking about, prophetically, the final glorious temple. And so it's greater than, this whole thing about 24 and 25 Kislev is greater than just the Maccabean victory over Antiochus Epiphanes. We are talking about God shaking heaven and earth, and overcoming Gentile kingdoms to build his temple, to lay the foundation and to bless his people. So yes, this is the principle.